Vishnu Brahmamsa Prabhupada Siddhivanga Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada Ki, ISKCON Founder Acharya Shri Prabhupada Ki, Anantakoti Vaishnava Prabhupada Ki, Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki, Karam Sikh Ho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shamakun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan Ki, Shri Vrindavan Nam Ki, Shri Mayapur Nam Ki, Ganga Mai Ki, Yamuna Mai Ki, Bhakti Devi Ki, Tulsi Devi Ki, Shri Hari Ram Sankirtan Ki, Kantaraj, Srimad Bhagavatam Ki, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki, Nisa Gaur Pramanandi, all glory to Sisamo devotees, all glory to Sisamo devotees, all glory to Sisamo devotees, all glory to Shri Guru Rangaram, glory to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskritya.
Narayanam Namaskritya.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam.
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam.
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam.
Stojaya Mudirayat.
Stojaya Mudirayat.
Nasta Parishu Bhadreshu.
Nasabeshu Bhadreshu
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke
Bhagavate Namaskloke
Bhakti Bhakti Nashtaki.
Bhakti Bhakti Naishki.
Alright, so today we are starting new chapter 24, chanting the song sung by Lord Shiva. As Kirtaneshwar so expertly pointed out, most famous chapter in the whole entire Bhagavatam.
One of the most.
One of the most.
Most famous.
Yeah, I was thinking someone's the 10th canto. But anyway, very important chapter. We're starting a very long chapter. We're also starting, because this is called the chanting of the song sung by Lord Shiva. So we're not going to get there right away. It's very common in Bhagavatam to describe the genealogy of great devotees of the Lord. And so since Prithu Maharaj was such a great devotee, it's natural that one would want to hear, okay, well, what came next? And so for about the first 16 texts or so, we're going to be hearing about actually, it's more of a continuation of the dynasty of King Uttanapan. We're going to hear about the sons of Maharaj Prithu, and then it'll pick up again with the Prachetas. Remember, the Prachetas were brought up earlier in the 4th canto, and I said that's actually how the canto all started. I think I had that verse too, and then I said it's going to be a long time before we actually get to the Prachetas, because we got other stuff to discuss. There's sometimes in our Krishna consciousness, when we're in ecstasy in our realizations, we'll go off on tangents glorifying different aspects, and then we'll come back around to the point. So because so many questions are being asked, Maharaj Parikshit is very eager to hear. We hear about other stuff, before we get straight to the Prachetas. And now we're starting to get there. But first, we're going to hear about the son of Maharaj Prithu. So we're going to do 1 through 3 today. Maitreya Vacha Vijitasvo Dirajashit. Prithu Putra Prithu Shavaha Yo Viyogyo Dadat Kasta Bharat Trivyo Vatsalaha Maitreya Vacha Vijitasvo Dirajashi Prithu Putra Prithu Shava Yaviyo Dadat Kasta Bharatrivyo Bharatrivatsala. The last word's a little hard for me. Bharatrivatsala. Okay. Maitreya Vacha Vijitasvo Dirajashi Prithuputra Prithushavaha Yaviyo Dadat Kashta Bharatrivyo Bharatrivatsalaha Bharatrivatsalaha. Okay, please chant.
Maitreya Vacha Vijitasvo Darajasi Prithuputra Prithushava Yaviyo Dadat Kashta Bharatrivyo Bharatrivatsala. What? Maitreya Vacha Vijitasodhirajasi Prithu Putra Prithu Sava Yadi Yogyo Dadakashta Bhatrivyo Bhatrivatsala
Prevacha
Bhatrevacha
Jitasvodhirajasi
Vijitasodhirajasi
Prithu Putra Prithu Shravaha Yivyo Dadakashta Bhatrivyo Bhatrivatsala Strange set of words.
All right. Maitreya Vacha. Maitreya continued to speak. Who's he speaking to? Vidura, yeah. Vijitasvaha of the name. Vijitasva. Adiraja, the emperor. Ashit, became. Prituputra, the son of Maharaj Prithu. Pritushavaha, of great activities. Yavyo Bhuya. Oh, this is. Okay, the way they printed this last word is a little bit hard. Yavyo Bhuyaha, unto the younger brothers. Adadat, offered. Kashtaha, different directions. Bhratribhyaha, unto the brothers. Bhratrivatsalaha, very affectionate to the brothers. Yeah, one of these words, it looks like kind of like when you write something and the ink is drying, but the word smears. Like, I don't know, I guess something with the printing of this book. Anyway, translation. The great sage Maitreya continued. Vijitasva, sorry. Okay, the great sage Maitreya continued. Vijitashva, the eldest son of Maharaj Prithu, who had a reputation like his father's, became emperor and gave his younger brothers the different directions of the world to govern, for he was very affectionate towards his brothers. All right, now we can repeat. The great sage Maitreya continued. Vijitashva, the eldest son of Maharaj Prithu, who had a reputation like his father's, became emperor and gave his younger brothers different directions of the world to govern. For he was very affectionate toward his brothers. All right. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. After describing the life and character of Maharaj Prithu in the previous chapter, the great sage Maitreya began to speak about the sons and they just stuck together. Okay, the sons and grandsons in the genealogical line of the Prithu dynasty. After the death of Maharaj Prithu, his eldest son Vijitashva became emperor of the world. King Vijitashva was very affectionate toward his younger brothers, and therefore he wanted them to rule different directions of the world. From time immemorial, the eldest son generally becomes king after the death of the previous king. When the Pandavas ruled the earth, Maharaj Yudhisthira, the eldest son of King Pandu, became emperor, and his younger brothers assisted him. Similarly, King Vijitashva's younger brothers were appointed to govern the different directions of the world. And we'll do text 2. Maharaj Vijitashva offered the eastern part of the world to his brother Haryaksha, the southern part to Drumrakesha, the western part to Vrika, and the northern part to Dravina. All right, and then text 3. Formerly, Maharaj Vijitashva pleased the king of heaven Indra, and from him received the title Antardana. His wife's name was Shikandini, and by her he begot 3 good sons. Purport. Maharaj Vijitashva was known as Antardana, which means disappearance. He received this title from Indra, and it refers to the time when Indra stole Maharaj Prithu's horse from the sacrificial arena. Indra was not visible to others when he was stealing the horse, but Maharaj Prithu's son Vijitashva could see him. Yet, despite his knowing that Indra was taking away his father's horse, Vijitashva did not attack him. This indicates that Maharaj Vijitashva respected the right persons. Although Indra was stealing the horse from his father, Vijitashva knew perfectly well that Indra was not an ordinary thief, since Indra was a great and powerful demigod and servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vijitashva purposely excused him due to sentiment only, even though Indra was acting wrongly. Thus, Indra became very pleased with Vijitashva at that time. The demigods have the great mystic power of being able to appear and disappear according to their will, and since Indra was very pleased with Vijitashva, he bestowed the mystic power upon him. Thus, Vijitashva became known as Antardana. All right, we'll get into Shri Chaitanya Mano Visham Stavitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shiguru Shuta Parakamalam Shigurun Vaishamam Shah Shri Rupam Sagachitam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Dam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sabadutam Prajana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Ladita Shri Vishakam Vitam Shah Hey Krishna Kurna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagapate Gopesha Gopikakanta Radhakanta Namostate Tapta Kancha Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Haripre Panchakalpa Tribhyascha Kripa Sindhu Beva Chapati Sinam Bhav Nevyo Vaishnavi Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Giradhar Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. All right, so in this first verse, it talks about how Maharaj Vijitashva divided up the kingdom for his different younger brothers to govern, and how they all assisted him. And even though we don't really have this system nowadays, it made me, appreciate how nice things can be when everyone cooperates. We've been speaking a lot about Prithu Maharaj and how well he governed. But we can also see that he didn't do it by himself. And Maharaj Vijitashva also, he had assistants in governing. And when everyone cooperates, the kingdom becomes very nice. There's this very nice passage from the Krishna book where it talks about Maharaj Yudhishthira and his elder brothers. So I will read a little bit of this to you, just a small amount. We find it here. All right. Okay, so this is also Shukadeva Goswami speaking to Maharaj Parikshit. So Shukadeva Goswami said, "My dear King Parikshit, your grandfather, King Yudhishthira, was a great soul. His congenial disposition attracted everyone to be his friend, and therefore he was known as Ajatashatru, one who never created an enemy. He engaged all the members of the Kuru dynasty in taking charge of different departments for the management of the Rajasuya sacrifice." So this Rajasuya sacrifice, it's to establish a king as basically the king of all kings. So Yudhishthira is about to do this sacrifice. But as we're going to see, it takes a lot of work. So, for example, Bhimasen was put in charge of the kitchen department, Duryodhana in charge of the supplies department, Sahadev in charge of the reception department, Nakula in charge of the store department, and Arjuna in charge of looking after the comforts of the elder persons. The most astonishing feature was that, does anyone know? Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, took charge, washing the feet of all the incoming guests. The queen, the goddess of fortune, Draupadi, was in charge of administering the distribution of food, prasad distribution. And because Karna was famous for giving charity, he was put in charge of the charity department. In this way, Satyaki, Vikarna, Hardikya, Vidura, Santardana, and Burishvara, the son of Balika, were all engaged in different departments for managing the affairs of the Rajasuya sacrifice. They were also bound in loving affection for King Yudhishthira, that they simply wanted to please him. So, you notice in this great Rajasuya sacrifice that they're putting on, everyone has their different department, and everyone's cooperating, and everyone's needed for this Rajasuya sacrifice to go on. And we even see that it appears that they're engaged in different departments according to their propensities. Like Karna here is engaged in the charity department because he's known he's very good for giving in charity. And we can see that if you read the chapter of the Rajasuya sacrifice, it's astonishing because it's the one time that you've got all the crews cooperating with each other. The Yurna's taking apart, Karna's taking apart, and everybody is getting along very nicely. And everything is going very well up until what point? Yeah, until they got to the part where someone had to be elected president to get the first offerings, and people were debating about who should get that part. And then Yudhishthira, being the king, he spoke up and said Krishna should have it, and gave all these reasons why Krishna was qualified. And the Brahmanas were like, "Jai, how do you pull Yudhishthira? You're the man. You're right. Krishna's qualified." And then everybody's happy, everybody's blissful, everybody's like, "Let's get on with it." But then what happens? Shishupal ruins the vibe. I mean, completely. You've had this experience where everyone's getting along, everyone's blissful, and that one person doesn't want to cooperate. And it starts to bring everything else down. I mean, you can learn a lot from these stories. We think, "Oh, this was so long ago," but studying these behaviors, you can learn a lot about how we should cooperate as devotees. And so Shishupal comes, he starts to ruin the vibe. He starts to insult Krishna. He's saying things like, "This Krishna's not qualified. We don't even know where he comes from. He was raised as this cowherd boy, and then he becomes this Kshatriya. Nobody knows his caste." What other insults does he hurl at him? It's not a part that we really want to remember because we don't like to hear Krishna insulted. He runs away from battle. He ran away from Jarasandha. Never mind, Jarasandha gets defeated 17 times prior. But then Krishna, one time, he had to leave because he had an important engagement, and he's now a coward. So he runs away from battle. We don't really know what caste he's from. There are so many more other qualified people. So we can see here how envy ruins everything. It wasn't that, the Pandavas were saying to, "Oh, why is Yudhishthira king? Why shouldn't Arjuna be king? And Bhima could be thinking, oh, I'm stronger. Why shouldn't I be king? And then Sahadev and Nakula, they could be thinking, oh, but we're more handsome and charismatic, so why shouldn't we be the leader? But no, in this one particular instance, everyone is cooperating. And then Shishupal comes and he ruins things. And because he kind of comes in and he starts insulting Krishna, you get all this, what we would call now, negative energy going on in the room. And then people become offended because Krishna is being insulted. People are getting ready to kill. And then after a certain point, Krishna just pulls out his Sudarshan Chakra and says, okay, no more, cuts off his head, and he delivers Shishupal. But it totally changes the scene. So we can learn from this pastime how lack of cooperation and envy, it really not only hurts us and hurts the people that are involved in the room, but it can really ruin everything else. Look how, nicely Vijitashva's kingdom is going on. His father, Maharaj Prithu, he reestablished everything after Vena, who also, he was very envious. And he was ruining things. He was envious of the Brahmanas. He stopped all their sacrifices and very atheistic. And Maharaj Prithu comes in and reestablishes everything. And because, Maharaj Prithu had this very nice kingdom, he trained his sons very nicely. But because they're cooperating with each other and doing things in this way, therefore, everything is continuing to go on very nicely. So it's a very great lesson for us in Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada established this very good movement, and really everybody has some part to play in it. We all have things that we're naturally good at. So we all have roles that Krishna wants us to do. And when we look at each other's propensities and we engage each other, oh, hey, Prabhu is very good at this. You should take charge of this. This Prabhu is very good at book distribution. Okay, let them work the book table for the festival. This one's very good at entertaining the children. Let's put them at the face painting table. This one is very good at answering questions. Let's put them at the question and answer booth. And when we all see each other's gifts and talents as we help each other engage those in Krishna's service, and we're not thinking, oh, let me have the highest position, then everything works out not only good for us, but it helps everybody else around. And people see that environment and they think, oh yeah, let me come enjoy that. At many of our festivals, I know a lot of people come and they say, even our Sunday feast, people will come and say, I come here just because I love the atmosphere. And really for a Sunday feast, for something like that, we all have to kind of take some part, even just to put that on. There has to be somebody to agree to give the lecture. There has to be somebody to set up the camera. There has to be somebody to distribute the prasad. But if people are like, no, why does this person get to give the lecture? Let me give the lecture. Then things aren't very hard. Or why does this person get to distribute the prasad? And I should be there, and I should be the one handling the donations. So to really do anything, it requires cooperation. And this goes back to what Srila Prabhupada said at the very end of his manifest pastimes, was that you will show your love for me by how well you cooperate in this movement. So we should all try to cooperate with each other. And we can see in Krishna consciousness, there's different preaching projects. And, people are trying to reach this audience, and some people are preaching to this specific audience. But sometimes we can get caught up in the details. And I know I was looking at one thing on Facebook one time, and, I joined at Krishna House. So there's a specific program there that's meant for helping university students. Everybody can join, but it's mainly catered to them, and to help them kind of join Krishna consciousness. And then some people come in and say, oh, this preaching program is no good because this is not what Srila Prabhupada did. This is not what we did when Srila Prabhupada was here. Everybody just joined the temple and they surrendered and they weren't worried about this, education and things like this, but completely ignoring the facts that, they've made Krishna consciousness accessible to university students and professors that are favorable to Krishna consciousness, and the university president is favorable to the Hare Krishna movement. And people have come and they've surrendered and they've become serious devotees because somebody came and said, here, let me open the door for you. And it's the same way here too. Many people, they come here and we go and we reach them, we see where they're at. And we say, here, let me open the door for you to step in. Krishna Cove. Krishna Cove is a very good example of, what we're doing. We're making Krishna consciousness accessible to our community. We're having very nice talk on Krishna consciousness. We're having good prasadam. We're creating an atmosphere where people feel loved and they feel comfortable. And we're giving them Krishna. And so people might, do this in different ways, spread Krishna consciousness. So if we cooperate with each other, then this movement can go all over the world. But if we look at individual, there's always some fault you can find with any temple or with any organization or with any preaching program, because we're in the material world and there's not going to be a utopia. But we should look and say, are they making devotees that are taking up this chanting Hare Krishna sincerely? Are they reading Prabhupada's books? Are they applying these instructions to their life? We shouldn't be, envious. Think, oh, this person, they have too many followers. Or, these people, they shouldn't be doing things like this. And of course, if there's some deviation, that's to be looked at. We should always make sure that people are following Guru Sada and Shastra. But oftentimes I can see that people just get nitpicky and they become envious. And they don't really look at the result of a project. So we can see in Krishna consciousness that when we all cooperate very nicely, and we all have that goal in mind of how can we give Krishna consciousness to others, how can we help also maintain each other in our Krishna consciousness, because Maya gets very strong and it comes after people that have taken up to this movement as well. So when there's that in mind, the goal in mind, spread Krishna consciousness, help people become devotees, help keep each other devotees. When that main goal is there, then we can look at all the other things and say, okay, well then, this is our goal, how do we get there? And we can appreciate also what other people are doing to spread Krishna consciousness. And a good thing to remember is, just keep that goal in mind. And this is before you look at the faults of others, look at the result of what they're doing as well. Because if you want to find fault somewhere, a fault will always be found. And with that, it goes into this purport about Indra. And Indra stealing the horse from Prithvi Maharaj. In Vijitashva, it says here that he didn't punish Indra. Because Indra is no ordinary soul. Actually, the post of Indra is so important that when there's no soul qualified to take the post of Indra, Krishna comes and takes his post himself. So Indra is king of heaven. But sometimes with great material opulence, one can get distracted a little bit. And we see that with Indra, he became very much afraid that if Prithvi Maharaj completed his sacrifice, that he would lose his position. So Indra decides to steal this horse. Vijitashva sees this and decides, not to punish Indra for it. And at first, I was thinking, why didn't he do something? Why didn't he say something? But we can see on Vijitashva's part, he understands, he excused Indra. He understands that Indra's no ordinary personality. But at the same time, we can also see that it wasn't Vijitashva's position to punish Indra as well. And Indra, sometimes he gets into these little things, problems that are good lessons for us. But it's not that Indra just gets away with it all the time. We see Vishnu came and he handled the situation. And he told Prithvi Maharaj, just be happy with the 99 horse sacrifices. But we can see in other situations that Indra gets, punished a little bit more severely or kind of given the correction that he needs. Like in the example with Govardhan Lila, Krishna, when Indra became very puffed up because the worship was going to Krishna, and he thought the worship should be going to him. So, Indra decided he was going to flood Vrindavan. Well, Krishna, set him straight by proving that he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He lives Govardhan Hill, and all the residents go underneath it. And therefore, eventually Indra gets the idea. Okay, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's greater than me. And Indra feels remorse. And this is one of the main things when devotees make mistakes. Sometimes people think, we should come down very hard on this person. But an accidental mistake or fall down is described when the devotee feels remorse for what they have done. So there's this verse, and this point's going to be brought up later in another purport. Prabhupada's going to quote this verse in relation to Indra, this Abhichat Sudarachayo. And this is a very famous verse in the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, talking about when the devotee falls from devotional service, that they should still be considered saintly because they're firmly fixed on this path of devotion. And firmly fixed is the main thing. They're not giving up, even though they might have some hang up. Indra, he has all this opulence. So he might have some attachment and some fear of losing it. But at the same time, we also read that in the Rajasuya sacrifice, there's one sentence where it is said that Indra and Brahma are sitting there ready to carry out the orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we can see with the Govardhan Leela that Indra felt remorse for what he had done. And this is the key. When sometimes devotees, because of our attachments, because of our samskaras, we might act in certain ways, or we might do certain things that aren't so good for Krishna consciousness or make offenses. But the main thing is that if there's remorse there, if there's the desire to be corrected, then this Prabhupada says, we should overlook these things. Of course, this does not mean that if one is coming to Krishna consciousness that they can think, I can make all these offenses, and because I'm a devotee, I'm still considered saintly. There's the appropriate it says that it doesn't apply in this situation. Because in this situation, the devotees or the person's desire is not to serve Krishna. They're trying to cheat. But in a situation where one is a little bit weak, Prabhupada says they're still considered saintly because they're firmly fixed in devotional service. And also we can see that Indra, he's also very handsome. And with all this opulence and with all this wealth, lust tends to come. We can even see this in the material world. Very powerful people, they can become lusty at times. And so because Indra is very handsome, he desired the wife of Gautama. And one day when Gautama was out, Indra came and he tries to force himself on the wife of Gautama. And Gautama finds out about this and he curses Indra. So it's not that because Indra's a devotee that he doesn't get any sort of reaction. But he gets the reaction from the proper person. In the situation with the horse sacrifice, like I mentioned before, Vijitashva, he wasn't in this proper position to punish Indra. It's not proper Vaishnava etiquette. But at the same time, we can see Gautama was in that position. And Krishna is in that position. And then when Indra offends his spiritual master, Brihaspati kind of corrects him, but ultimately by disappearing. So, but at the same time, Prabhupada says that Indra, he's a great devotee of the Lord. So in dealing with devotees, sometimes we might see that people above us, maybe they act wrongly or they do something that's not proper. And the question is often brought up, well, how do we deal with this situation? Well, in general, it's recommended that one can talk to a senior devotee about it that's on the level to correct that other devotee. Sometimes, especially when we're in positions of management and something really, really bad is happening with somebody in management, then we can go and we can say something to somebody that has the power, the ability to correct them. Because quite often I've noticed, because I have a big ego sometimes, if you try to correct somebody that's above you, they just get offended with you. Sometimes it's better just to have somebody that's on their level, talk to them about it. And they should be willing to also talk to them about that concern too. A problem can be when you go to a senior devotee about somebody who's your senior, and they don't want to do it. They don't want to do anything about it. But ideally, they should do something. There was one time where I was in the temple, and the senior devotee kept doing this thing that was really inappropriate. And one of my friends went to a Prabhupada disciple and said, "This has been going on for a while. Should I say something?" And he said, "You shouldn't say something, but it's my duty to say something." So there's this story, and I'll tell this story. And then I'll end here because I want to hear about your Rath Yatra experience. But there was these devotees in New York, and I believe, it was the wife of this Prabhupada disciple, Bali Mardan. She basically told him she was the heiress to the Toyota fortune, and she married him, and it turned out not to be true. But anyway, one of the things that she was doing was she was offering chicken to the deities. She was doing some really bad behaviors, and there were devotees that were going along with this. And later when Prabhupada found out about it, he wasn't upset with the junior devotees, but he was upset with the devotees that were more senior and kind of on their level. Why didn't you guys do something about it? But for the devotees that were more junior, he wasn't upset with them because they were following their superiors. So we should also keep that in mind to know where we're at in Krishna consciousness. And if one devotee that's on the level with us, if they're doing something that's a little bit improper, or if they're junior to us, maybe we should correct them if we have some authority over them. But in general, if there's some senior devotee, we should be very careful in our dealings with them. Like Lord Chaitanya set this example with Ramachandra Puri, I believe it was. He came and he criticized Lord Chaitanya, and even though Lord Chaitanya is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he was setting the example of Vaishnava etiquette. And he paid his obeisances, he reduced his eating, but the other devotees, they weren't very happy. And so this led ultimately into Ramachandra leaving. But Lord Chaitanya set the proper example that one should follow for this Vaishnava etiquette. And it can be very hard to do this sometimes, but we can also see that Vijitashva followed this example as well. And because he followed this example, Indra gave him this ability to also be able to become invisible. So he got the name Antardana. So this is a pretty awesome power to have. Can you imagine? You can just become invisible. If somebody's looking for you, just become invisible. But also we can see if used in the wrong way, it can get you in trouble, because this same power got Indra in trouble when he went after Gautama's wife. He became invisible so he wouldn't be seen. And when he got in there, he used this to commit an act that ultimately wasn't so good for his Krishna consciousness. It led him to be cursed. I think all of you know what that curse was. So basically, Gautama said, since you're such a big fan of the female genitalia, you should wear it. So he had thousands and thousands of female genitalia on his body. And then he realized, oh no, I shouldn't have done this. So he begs for mercy. And if I remember the story correctly, I believe he went to Lakshmi Devi, and Lakshmi was like, oh, that's probably a good curse for you. And then later, I believe it was Gautama that decided, okay. And he turned that to eyeballs. So that Indra had thousands of eyeballs on his body instead. So, but anyway, it just shows that, Indra's a great devotee. sometimes he has some desires because of his position. It leads him to have some desires and some fear of losing his position, some lusty desires that come with the power of being king of heaven. I mean, he has more opulence than any of us can imagine. But at the same time, Prabhupada's saying with devotees in general that we should try to not get so hung up on their faults, especially if we're junior to them. But it'll be taken care of in due course of time. And because if they're sincere and they're staying on the path of devotional service and they're fully dedicated, they're going to get purified of whatever fault they have in due course of time. And we can see with the horse sacrifice, speaking of the level of cooperation, because Vichitashva, he followed the example of Vaishnava etiquette. Everything ultimately came out in the best way possible. I mean, Lord Vishnu came on the scene, and Lord Vishnu came down and took care of it. Everybody got darshan of Lord Vishnu. So cooperating and following these examples in Shastra, the examples of Vaishnava etiquette, cooperating with other devotees to spread this movement. If we try our best in these things, we'll never be the losers. And if some correction needs to be made, ultimately some correction will be made, as we can see with all the stories I just said with Indra. He got put back on track, but with the right person. So with that said, we have a few minutes. If you guys would like to talk about Rath Yatra, if you'd like to talk about the purport, please go ahead.
Nice class.
Oh yeah, Keelan, this was your first Rath Yatra. Oh yeah, so the thing is, with these experiences in Krishna consciousness also come the responsibility of sharing the ecstasy. So actually, what I did, I think when I went last year is the Tuesday that we got back, I didn't give a class. I just had everybody talk about their realizations, but I didn't know who was going to be here today. So what was your biggest realization?
I don't know how the realization, but it was just like a great atmosphere, and it was so cool to see like everybody just dancing and like so like happy to like go down like the whole parade, and then seeing the big like floats and stuff like that was like pretty cool. The kirtan was pretty cool, like how everyone like different float had a like different kirtan going on and like different vibes going. It was nice to see like also like how many devotees showed up for it. I wasn't expecting like that big of a crowd, to be honest. Like it was like packed, like you almost get trampled almost. It was kind of funny to see.
It's like a city of devotees.
Yeah, literally. I was like, whoa, I didn't know there was like all these people, and then they all come from different like states too, and so I was like, it's pretty cool to see all these different kinds of like devotees there.
All over the world too. LA Rath Yatra is one of the most famous Rath Yatras in ISKCON. LA and New York, very famous.
Yeah, it was cool to see.
All right. Now you got the mercy. There's no going back now.
Yeah.
Jagannath's got you.
Yeah, and I got to pull like the rope a little bit too, so that was interesting.
What about you, Kirsan?
So many nice things. There's nice association on the way up. Sweet to be with Ajitesh Prabhu and Ranga Prem, Darnell, all the devotees, the San Diego devotees. So nice. Nice prasadam in San Diego, swimming in the beach. So many nice things. Dravida Prabhu's really sweet. Just actually is like Bhajanaran Swami was sick and Vijay doesn't live there anymore. So Dravida is like the senior devotee there at the temple. And so he's kind of like runs everything and he's just so nice. And so like, he's so together, always like make sure everything's done properly, but at the same time, he's very nice about it. For the Rath Yatra, the best part for me was there was somehow or another I ended up on this like team of people carrying flags, these big giant like royal like welcoming things.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, somehow I ended up doing this. And it was me and Curtis. And then like when they were moving Lord Jagannath from Lord Jagannath's cart to Subhadra's cart, you know, they had all the pujaris holding Lord Jagannath. And then they had this like megaphone with like the siren on it. It was like, and like, you know, they had this team of people like pushing the crowd away, and like Lord Jagannath's there. And I was here with this sign, and I had this like Lord Jagannath gave me a sidelong glance, and it threw me into like an ecstasy that I was just like really like, it actually was scary. You know, sometimes you get those moments of ecstasy that are almost like scary because you realize like what the significance of what's going on, that this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and like I'm in his entourage. This is like, you know, you see like the Secret Service with Trump or whatever, and it's like, it's nothing compared to this. This is like the Supreme Personality of Godhead right here, you know, and it was such a real experience that Lord Jagannath is fully conscious, fully aware. He's not a deity. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. And it was like this sense of like, it was like mind blowing. And then I think it's, I mean, I didn't realize it, but I have these deep, like every time Vaisheshika Prabhu leads Kirtan, I get like these insanely emotional experiences. And I was just walking in Subhadra's cart, and Vaish was leading Kirtan, and he was just singing the morning tune. And I just like had this kind of overwhelming sense of what's going on here, that, you know, we're taking Krishna back to Vrindavan, and that Lord Chaitanya, the fact that this festival is happening is not, it's not a small thing. It's not just like, oh, we're having a Rath Yatra. Like Lord Chaitanya loved Rath Yatra. Srila Prabhupada performed Rath Yatra as a child. It's intrinsic to our movement. It's intrinsic to the Gaudiya movement, in that we're taking Krishna back to Vrindavan. And I looked at the Sudarshan Chakra and I saw the flag, and I just had another like ecstatic tear welling moment of just seeing the flag on the cart of Lord Jagannath. I was just, I'm blown away. It was really, those two experiences were really sweet. And then the last thing I met Kashtuba.
Oh yes.
And, you know, I just was, I met Raghav many times, but Kashtuba, no, I just wanted to went up and said hi. And I was just so impressed by how nice he was. You know, he was just so kind to me, even though we only talked for a quick second. He really made me feel like, you know, he cared about what I had to say, and was thankful that I had went up and spoke to him. And I just love when devotees are like that, you know, 'cause sometimes you see, you know, like famous people or famous devotees even, and they don't give you that sense of like, you know, they make you feel important. And it's always nice. It's a very Krishna conscious thing to make every person feel wonderful. And I was feeling very grateful to Kashtuba just to have had a 1 minute of talking with him. That was really sweet. I don't know if you heard about the car ride.
No.
This is not the Rath Yatra. Last point is that the car ride, you know, just amazing how devotees are so happy and transcendental all the time, and no matter what face the circumstances, especially if they're together. Because first off, we were riding, and then we had to stop and get air. And then in the middle of getting air, the air machine broke. So we went to another QT, and that QT didn't have air. Then we went to another QT, finally filled the car with air, after going to a Circle K, which didn't work either. So then we're going, and it's like the car is shaking, like intensely shaking.
Man.
And so we got to about almost to Yuma, and then tire blew out. So tire blew out in the desert. We're there in the desert for like 2 hours, and we're just having a grand time in the desert.
You're like on the side of the road in the desert.
Yeah, we're just having a grand time, taking prasadam and laughing.
Yuma's hot.
It's the hottest place in Arizona. And it's actually the sunniest place in the world.
Yeah.
And so then we're like, after 2 hours, and then finally we're exhausted. We finally managed to get someone to come out, get the tire fixed. Okay, we're on the road again. And then I'm like, all right, Ajitesh, we drive through the sand dunes. You know the sand dunes?
Yeah.
I'm like, let's take a picture. So I pull to the side of the road, and the car just sinks into the sand.
Oh, no.
And so we're just like, we're just stuck there in the sand. And here we are, like, we thought it was hot before. Now we're in like the sand dunes, like the literally it looks like the Sahara Desert. It's almost, and it was like getting overwhelming. But then Ajitesh goes, this is also Jagannath's mercy. So the devotees all got out and pushed the car. And I put it in low and then revved the engine as hard as I can, and just we got out of the sand somehow or another. And so, but we were still happy. And then, we got back to San Diego, and there was more car problems, and the AC went out on the way back, and then it came back. So it was really, but the whole time we're happy.
I was gonna ask what was the anxiety, because whenever like challenge, because whenever devotees undertake an endeavor like this, like you're going on pilgrimage, you're going to Rath Yatra, sometimes if you're just like going on Harinam or traveling book distribution, there's always something like this that happens, Yeah,
Lord Jagannath puts us there, but then we were all happy, having a lot of fun with it. There was no loss; it was all fun.
That's the thing. It's usually an ecstatic moment because you're with all the devotees. But Lord Jagannath, he gives a lot of mercy, but sometimes he makes you work for it too.
Yeah, it's nice too to take Darnell and Garanga Prem back to San Diego, because like both of them kind of started becoming serious devotees after going there, and now Garanga Prem's initiated in brahmachari, and so it's like they're happy, and then seeing all our San Diego friends. But
Nice.
fantastic trip. I don't think there's anything else I can share.
All right. Well, I think they're bringing out. They're bringing out breakfast. Anyway, you guys want to share real quick?
I was just gonna add one thing, also visited the beach.
Oh, yeah.
We sit here for like 15 minutes, parking like no parking zone. And so we go back out, we're like, okay, it's time to leave. We're gonna go get the car. And there's some man just sitting inside of this car, and he's got like 3 cops drawn down on him, and then there's like 5 cop cars in total. And then they got the whole street blocked off. So we're like, well, I guess it's Panchatattva's arrangement that they want us to stay for Sunday feast and take prasad. So we stayed for Sunday feast and stayed in Laguna Beach, and prasad was really nice, and it was a really nice time. So.
Beautiful. Wow. Yeah, that's a beautiful temple. Laguna Beach is right next to the beach. It's right next to the beach, actually. Beautiful Panchatattva Devis.
Yeah.
Lucky you.
It's actually the second time Panchatattva got to be
You're gonna go pray?
I think one of the biggest realizations that I had was, and I it's like the same realization every time, is that Lord Jagannath and all the deities, I guess just Krishna in general, is just like so merciful and always trying to fulfill your desires. Because like I watched Jamuna and Jagannath both be able to go, even though they seemingly had no place to go. And then when it came to actually being there at Rath Yatra, Kirtan got to lead Kirtan, and Ajitesh got to lead Kirtan. I was praying for some service, and I was given some service to hold the flags for a bit, and Curtis was able to do that as well. And it was just really cool seeing all the desires get fulfilled. Then we went to the bunch of Tattva, and I was like, man, I don't really want to go. And Kirtaneswar didn't really want to go either. And then the bunch of Tattva trapped us there. So it was just really neat seeing how personal they are and how much they want us to have that deeper relationship with them.
Beautiful. Wow. Well, all right. I think that's everybody. All right. Well, Jai Jagannath.